So you guys know today there are a couple of sheets of paper on your tables in front of you. If you do have a question that you'd like to pose to the candidate, please write your question on those pieces of paper and find one of the board members to bring it to. Can our board members raise your hand in the room? Find one of them, send them the sheet, and they're going to walk it up to our moderator, Chris, and he'll consider it for the Q&A. So with that, I will introduce Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Layton, past president of City Club of Eugene. Good afternoon. This is our first, as Paige said, our first City Club of Eugene and Springfield collaborative program. It's April 12th. We are coming to you today from Roaring Rapids Pizza. And I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our speaker and to all of you joining us in person, online, or over the radio. You're invited this week and every week to join us in this effort. Both clubs have programs frequently to share your wisdom, learn something new, and take active steps to make a difference in this city and the region we all love. Of course, we cannot do this work alone. A special thank you to our Platinum Community and Diamond sponsors, Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce, Kaiser Permanente, the University of Oregon, Peace Health, Lane Community College, and the City of Eugene. With that, I will turn the mic over to our moderator, Chris Lehman, KLCC's news director, and he will introduce the program and the speaker.
Thank you, Mary, and welcome everybody. Thank you for allowing KLCC to participate in this forum. And this is, as we said, the Congressional District 4 Republican primary. There are two candidates on the ballot. One candidate, as I understand, declined to appear here today. So we have another candidate, Amy Ryan Courser. Amy, I'll invite you to come forward as we move into the next part of the program. We'll start with an opening statement, and then we'll go into questions. Since there's only one candidate, we're going to try to keep answers to about a minute and a half, but we won't be kind of jumping in to cut off since there isn't quite the need to have exact same time for responses, but we do have quite a number of questions, so we'll try to keep moving along as we go through. So when we get into the questions, I'll have you sit here, but for your opening statement, please use the podium.
It is so great to be with you today. My name is Amy Ryan Courser. I'm honored to be one of your candidates. We started out with 5 of us. There's 2 of us remaining in the race. We would like to represent you in Congress. And I do think this is one of the most important job interviews that I have ever had. So I'm very proud to be here to share more about who I am and my policy thoughts and how we move Oregon forward in our current political divide. So I will let you know just a little bit about me. I am a past city councilor, I'm a wife, a mother, and a small business owner. So I do have a business background. I do a lot with our local businesses and chambers as well. And I have had a seat at the table for some very important discussions, emergency management, budget, law enforcement. Very proud of having some great success with that, and happy to share more information because as you know, I only have a very short time, but I am available for lots of questions. And I think most importantly, you should know that I am a woman who was a foster care survivor, and that has really driven me into the race and what we can do for our kids in Oregon and how we can do better. So though I'm very policy driven, you'll find that my experience is very fiscally conservative as a business owner, but I also have a huge heart for the humanitarian issues. So with that, I look forward to questions, and I'm happy to answer anything that you may have. If I don't know, I will let you know. I don't know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the first question, we heard a little bit about you in your opening statement. My first question is, if elected, what would your top priority be as a member of Congress?
Great question. Oh, here, let me come closer. That is an excellent question. It's one I hear often, and it's easy to answer, and I'll tell you why. I recently took a trip to the border. It changed my life. So I went from an economic position being our most important position, being economy and of course our fiscal responsibility. That has now moved to my second after visiting the border and the crisis that we're facing of our nation and what I witnessed firsthand. And that is a very long discussion, and I'm happy to have it with you, but it was life-changing. It's a humanitarian issue, and my number one priority now with, of course, that trip is the border. Second is economy and how we move forward with Oregon priorities, and so that Oregonians can thrive with our businesses. And then thirdly, I am very focused on the priority of weaponization against politics and from our government. So I'm very focused on that as well. I think we cannot, no matter what parties we are, no matter what division we have, no matter what our goals are, if we continue to move forward with the polarization and the weaponization of our government, it will alter our elections and our country for the rest of our lives.
Thank you. Well, your response anticipated some of my questions, so we'll have a little bit more time to talk about, I think, some of those issues that you just brought up in your response there. And let's move, in fact, to the immigration question. U.S. immigration officials report the number of people crossing the southwest border illegally is dropping, but is still at considerably higher levels than just a few years ago. What steps do you think Congress should take to address the question of immigration?
Well, that's an excellent point. So there's a lot of flexibility in numbers and data depending on where you find your information. But I will tell you, of course, seeing firsthand, the importance is the safety of Americans, number one. Our national security is my number one priority. And it's something that our president, and no matter who our president is moving forward, and the Congress takes an oath to provide security for our nation. And so that is very important to me. So that would be my number one priority. And I think to do that, we've always been a benevolent nation. Obviously we're made up of a very big diversity of great nations, right? That's how we all got here. So I recognize that, but I also recognize the importance of the securing our nation and our borders. And so because of that, I believe that we need to shut our border, we need to secure our border, and then we've always been, again, the most benevolent nation in the world. We are a welcoming nation, and I think we can do a lot to move forward. But with the issues we've had, I have many friends who have been waiting and paying money to become an American citizen. Our most patriot citizens of the United States came from somewhere else, and because they worked hard to come, and they did it the right way, and they did it legally. So I would support enforcing the law, providing a legal avenue, and that we have to, number one, protect our citizens in America first.
Thank you. Moving to a question on the economy, Oregon's unemployment rate remains at one of its lowest levels ever, yet many people are still experiencing financial struggles as high costs persist for housing and for everyday needs. What is the federal government's role in addressing economic challenges, and what proposals do you have when it comes to helping those who face economic hardships?
So that is such a broad question, and there's many answers to that question, but I think the highlight of the issue is the homelessness and also the affordable housing. I hear that everywhere we go. I don't know if you know that this district is 18,000 square miles. So we have 7 counties, and every county has a little bit different issue, and so I'm learning all of the issues of the counties that I'm not as familiar with, but I will tell you affordable housing has always been number one in all of the counties. So federal government is responsible for providing funding, and Oregon doesn't have a funding problem. You're going to hear me say that a lot. Pick a topic. We don't have a funding issue. We have an accountability issue, and we have a spending issue. So it's really important that we enforce the laws, we enforce the policies, and we create new solutions so that we can have affordable housing on one hand, and also be a generous state that we can provide support and, of course, direction for. We have a lot of future generations that we need to take care of, and we are not being fiscally responsible so that we can set them up for success, or for Oregon businesses, and of course inviting future businesses to thrive if they have nowhere to home and house their employees.
You mentioned affordable housing. What are some policies that you see the federal government could engage in to encourage housing affordability?
So one of the things you'll hear me say often on, again, a variety of topics is that I am a big proponent of getting less government, federal government, out of the businesses and the lives of our citizens. So what that means to me is that we need to bring back the policies to the state legislature. They need to be, our representatives need to be listening to the people of their districts. And so with that being said, to answer your question, housing, affordable housing is going to change a little bit wherever we are, but we cannot continue to throw money at it or house the homeless. We have to house and provide accountability and finance and not just finance, but options so that we can support people who have workers coming in, who have, we have a lot of great forestry, agriculture. I mean, Oregon is such a wonderful opportunity of so many areas, and we're not taking care of or providing opportunities to support those businesses. So it would be, to me, it's a very big divide between federal government. I don't think federal government's the answer. I think the state's the answer, and how we hold our officials accountable.
The 4th District has a number of colleges and universities, public and private. President Biden recently announced another attempt to cancel or restructure billions of dollars in student loans. Where do you stand on the issue of student loan forgiveness?
That's a tough one, and I'll tell you, some basic facts and data is that 90% of Americans don't have a student loan. But I know when I went to school, it took me over 10 years to pay off my student loans, and I'm sure several of you in this room have been there. You know what I'm talking about. We just did it. I believe the bailout number on student loans as of today was $155 billion on the taxpayers. That's money that we could be putting into resources for mental health, for our kids, for housing. We can redistribute that money and make it account for every American instead of trying to buy votes for a younger generation that I think is a weak position to come from. So I think $155 billion on American taxpayers is not acceptable.
You mentioned potential investments in mental health. What do you see as some of the gaps in mental health services? And again, I always kind of go back to what the federal government's role, since this is a federal race. So what do you see as the federal government's role in addressing mental health gaps?
So that's a really long conversation. When you hit mental health, I think is one of our #1 most important priorities, and it affects everything that we do. It affects all of our laws. It affects how we move forward. And Oregon has thrown money at the issue. We cannot continue to throw money at the mental health issues. It's not our answer. And it doesn't matter if it's homelessness, joblessness, housing. It's just not the answer. We have to encourage people to be successful, to gain employment, to get help for the issues that they have and that they need, whether it be rehabilitation or, it is such a huge topic of conversation. But I do think it's really important that we address it to move forward. It's really not a federal issue as much as it is a state issue, and I support working on a state level and in the communities. Even though this is a federal position, as you've pointed out, I think it's really important to recognize that on a state and community issue, our counties, we have to engage each other and find the solutions together. And what might be one answer for another is not going to be the answer for someone else. So we have to find the solutions to work together. And I don't think it's again, we're not throwing money at it is not the answer.
Turning now to an issue that has been in the news quite a lot recently, including this week, and in regards to Dobbs' decision about changes in abortion policy, had sweeping changes across the nation, although its impact in Oregon was somewhat limited compared to other places. Do you support the current status quo of largely allowing states to regulate abortions?
Thank you for that question. I knew that was coming up, you all. I knew that was going to be important. It's not only important federally, it's important on a state level in our communities and our families. So I was prepared for this question, and I think you'll probably have more. We can dive deeper into it if you have more questions. But I will let you know that I am unapologetically pro-life. I believe in the sanctity of life from conception to final breath. And that means everyone sitting here, the dignity of how you end your life and how you move forward and your choices and your decisions. So I am an advocate for the sanctity of life. I will tell you that I am pro-life, and I am very honored to be endorsed by Oregon Right to Life and 3 other national Right to Life organizations. But what that means to me is that I have the opportunity, and I hope to have the forum, so that we can have the very difficult discussions of what that looks like for Oregon. We can't run away from it. We can't shy away from it. We have to embrace it. We have to talk about it. It's a very emotional issue for men and women and our children, but I think we can all agree. First of all, I support Oregon legislature and their laws, and the will of the people is important to me. I am very much a candidate who is for the people. We may not always agree on everything, and I'm okay with that, but let's have the hard discussions. So there's a lot of education that we have now that we did not have before. For example, when that was Roe versus Wade became a rule, we didn't have the ability to do and perform in Oregon, or actually in the United States, ultrasounds. We have that now. We have the science, we have the data, we have the information to make good decisions. But the important thing, and I will tell you, I support the life equally of the mother, and I will not go against, of course, the right of the people and the will of the people. But we need to protect the mother. We need to protect the baby, and I also think there's a lot of scenarios and a lot of conversations to have, and I'm okay with that. The important thing is that I agree that it came back to the states. Every state's going to look different. Oregon, though, the one thing I really disagree with in Oregon is full-term abortion. I don't think that's right. Can we find common ground? Yes. But I think with the heart of every citizen in the state of Oregon, I think we can all agree that we can do better at providing education for contraception, provide education and the information of the data. And I think that together we can find, I don't want to just say common sense because that's so overused, but I think we can find consensus to what that looks like, to protect the mom, to protect the baby, and moving forward, I think we're making strides in the right direction.
How do you balance sort of the concept of allowing the will of the people sort of in individual states versus some overarching kind of fundamental rights that have traditionally been extended to everyone in the country, thinking of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, Second Amendment issues, which could, in theory, be decided state by state. You could have no guns allowed at all in one state and complete, firearm freedom in another state. Where do you kind of draw the line? How do you make those decisions?
So they're not my decisions to make in the sense of, even though I'm a policymaker, I will support the will of the people. That's really important to me. To be a representative of the people is what's important to you. What I would like to see is a facilitation of education and information so that we can make good decisions, so that we can move forward and all feel confident in whatever that decision we made, even if we had to compromise it. So obviously you just listed multiple topics which are relevant to so many of us. To one person it's one thing, to another it's another issue. But the reality is supporting the will of the people, supporting our Constitution because it was designed to protect us and to move forward. And I do believe I'm right back there too. Let's get federal government out of it and let's bring it back to the states and we need to have better conversations with our decision policymakers, our legislators, and know that they're doing the right thing and what we ask them to do as the people. And we're not always going to agree on that, but are they listening? And that's their job. And I do believe it should come back to the states on every level.
I want to read a question that was submitted by a member of our in-person audience here today. The work of the U.S. Congress has been slowed by the challenge of bringing together people of diverse or actually conflicting opinions. Can you give us an example of when you helped find a solution to a serious problem when decision makers had very different ideas about what could work?
Sure. Let me pick a great one. Let's see. That's a great point. Congress is very divided. We're at a 10% approval rating. That's because we're not getting along and there's a lot of arguing and division, and COVID didn't help that. We started, a lot of people don't realize that they did voting from home and they did proxy voting, so other people representing other states actually took Oregon's votes. That happened, and we have to maintain that control as our federal representatives. We are the voice of the people, and we cannot lose that. So with that being said, I really think that a great example for me, probably one of the hottest topics for me as a city councilor was the sanctuary status, because it was a lot of fear mongering, a lot of misinformation. Every subject we could probably come up with today is really a variable based on the information and the facts that you receive. And so I think it's really important as an elected official. I spent a lot of time going out into the community, having the conversations, having the town halls. I have to share really quick, when I got into politics, it's because I didn't like it and I was angry at my city council. And I went in because I wanted some infrastructure, I wanted a safe sidewalk for a bus stop. And I couldn't get it. It took me years to get it. And that's how I ended up in city government. Now, as a foster kid, I realized that the next steps for me, it wasn't mayor or figurehead, it was policy and getting things done and solutions. So that's how I got into politics, because again, who likes politics, right? It's really tough. But I will tell you, there were issues, for example, like I'm using an example of the sanctity of the status of the state, and also we didn't decide state, we decided city. And that was a huge, huge battle within my city, because it's really important that our citizens feel safe, but it's also really important that we are a law enforcement state, that we enforce the laws and we have them for a reason. So I think it's really important that there's a balance there, but the importance to me was communicating and listening to everyone. And so the success that we had, I didn't win that. I was one vote of I was not a majority vote, but I stayed true to my beliefs, and you will always know with me where I stand. And that's the great thing. We may not be like policy minded, we may have differences, but I will take your call, I will listen to you, and I respect your thought. And how everyone today right now in this room and listening, we came together and we're here because of what we've been through in our lives. So it's really important to honor that and say, I learned so much from listening to people like yourself, and that's how I came to that decision. And even though I didn't prevail, and that's okay, I won't always, but the important thing was that I did listen to the people and represented them well.
Thank you. One of the chief roles that Congress has that the state and local governments do not is foreign policy. Being a voice, creating foreign policy, making foreign policy decisions. So I'll have a couple of foreign policy questions for you now. More than 2 years after it invaded Ukraine, Russia doesn't seem to be letting up. Ukraine is in an increasingly precarious position. What role do you think the U.S. should take in that conflict?
And specifically Ukraine, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. There's so many to talk about. I believe that we should have played a firmer, stronger role initially in the Ukraine and the adversity. They are our ally. We should have gone in with, we have equipment, we have resources, and we should have gone in strong and made a position and shown a force of strength. We did not do that. And we are still struggling to this day with, of course, and that's one of the decisions, but that's one of the main issues when you talk budget and foreign national policy that is dividing our Congress, and that is the division of foreign nations and supporting our allies.
Going forward, what sort of looking 6 months, a year down the road, since there doesn't seem to be an imminent end to that, what can the U.S. do to support, as what you said, is an ally?
So, in my experience and opinion, moving forward, the answer is to finding the solutions is going to be some very stern policy moving forward and supporting our allies. So, which we have not done. We have provided weakness. We have wavered on everything we've done, and I believe we have to support our military, our United States military. We need the tools and the resources so that we're prepared. And the most important thing is to end the loss of life. So how do we do that? And I will support a president who has a plan for that, because we have not had leadership in that area.
Turning to another, perhaps equally thorny foreign policy question, what would you like to see the United States do when it comes to the current war in Gaza? This is sort of the billion-dollar question, but what do you see as a path forward toward peace in that region?
No tough questions today, right? And again, that's another really important topic. We have the right and responsibility to support our allies, Israel. And we should have done that from the beginning. We should have came in harder and stronger, and we should not waver. And we have to show a strength of force. We have not done that. And it's everything from our military to our policy to accountability. And we have not done a very good job from a federal position on supporting Israel. And I know there's a lot of pushback. It's a very hot topic, but I think the important thing, again, is to end the loss of life as quickly as possible, to move forward in peace, and we can only have that through strength if we provide support to our military.
And, what are some options for, as you said, ending the loss of life as soon as possible? Does that involve pressure on Israel? What do you see as that possibly being?
Well, I don't believe it's pressure on Israel. I think it's support of Israel. I think we have to stand and show a support of our ally, Israel. And I don't believe we've done that. So for me, it's moving forward in a position of strength. And that means supporting through resources. We have the resources. We have allocated the money. We need to not waver. We need to not be having the discussions. And we need not to be telling other countries how to run their war. We need to be showing a force of support.
Thank you. I'm going to move back to an audience question now. But first, partly to give you a chance to catch your breath, I want to acknowledge that when you're the only speaker, you get the mic to yourself, but you don't get a break to process a whole lot while the other person is responding. So thank you for answering these questions. Okay, so more of a domestic policy question, again, from a member of our in-person audience on the economy. What do you see as the greatest barrier to job creation in this district? And what could you do in your role in Congress to address these barriers and/or capitalize on job-creating opportunities?
This is a great question, and it's so relevant locally. So as a city councilor, I created over 1,000 jobs. I think that's so important that we create jobs, that we support the economy and keep it moving. We cannot find the answers in increased taxes. That is not the answer. Taxing businesses, pushing businesses out of Oregon to move other states is not the answer. And we have to give better, I don't want to say accommodations, we have to give better resources and I think appointments. I think the government, meaning not necessarily federal but state, I think we could do more to support our local businesses. We should give them tax breaks. During COVID, we lost, do you know how many businesses we lost? The number's staggering because we didn't support them. Throwing money at the issue is not the answer. We didn't support local businesses, and we provided rules and regulations, and I would be for less rules, less regulations, and let's funnel the money and find the way to support local businesses to help them keep afloat so that we can provide jobs and living wages so that people aren't struggling with affordable housing. It's quite cyclical, as you can imagine. So it's really important that our state level and our federal level, there is money available, and so we just need to allocate it and make sure that it's going to the right resources so that they can continue to be successful or become successful and thrive. We have a lot of new businesses really coming out and trying to establish themselves, and it's very hard during an economy and inflation to go and support small business. I know it is. It's just like having this great location and that they were so kind to let us come here. I think, I see that a lot, and the important thing is we have to keep supporting small businesses. So.
What is an example of a regulation that maybe you saw at the city council level or elsewhere of a regulation that was hindering small business growth?
Well, the thing that comes to my mind first is that we just cannot continue to overtax our businesses and throw different taxes at them over and over and repeat that and think that they can, number one, maintain their business and pay the taxes, and at the same time, they can't afford employees. I mean, it's really a balancing act that I think that we could do better at and provide maybe some new programs, some new solutions to support local business. And through the chambers, I'm a big chamber advocate. I think there's a lot of opportunities there as well.
Thank you. In the 4th District, the forest policy is huge, as it is in much of Oregon, of course. Whether it's timber mills, logging, or protecting particular areas in the district that have a lot of environmental value. What would your North Star be in terms of forest policy priorities in the 4th District? Mm-hmm.
That's a great question, and it's very important because we as Oregonian and the setting policy have not done a very good job in supporting our forestry or the management of the forestry. I know, boy, the countless fires that we've had, it's all from mismanagement of maintaining and not enforcing and allowing them to maintain their forestry. We also need to get international out of the picture. We need to be supporting Oregon First resources, Oregon First forestry, Oregon First agriculture, so that we can provide living wages and support to our local farmers so that they can do better and they can export. We need to be exporting. We need to be showing support for all of our natural resources. So, and I think that's really important.
Are there other environmental concerns that you have, or do you think that, how do I put, I don't want to just say, talk about the environment, but, mm-hmm. Climate change is a topic that is important to a lot of people in the Eugene Springfield area.
Sure.
What are some policies, I guess I would say, that you see would be beneficial to climate change, or maybe there's been overreach? Just talk about that.
how about both? I think we do have the government overreach. I think government needs to back up a little bit, but government made it possible for all of the lawsuits, and they base them on whether it be environmental or climate, or they put a tag on it. And I think the important thing is that we have not done a very good job of supporting our local businesses for forestry, agriculture, and the like. So we need less government, we need less regulations, we need less taxes, we need to support and help them be successful, or we're going to lose them. We're right now losing those businesses to other states, or they're closing altogether. I mean, we see it every day. And so, and to your point of environment, I think, as a fifth generation Oregonian, that would be me, I was raised that you always leave it better than you found it. And we're losing that with our younger generations. I think we could take the time to make an impact on our area, no matter whether it's your neighborhood or you're camping, or you're in the environment for whatever reason. We can, and the coast. I mean, we have so many great resources. We have to leave it better than we found it. We need to be good stewards of the planet, and we need to be proud of our beautiful state of Oregon. And I think we've lost a passion for that, and I'd love to see that come back.
I want to go back to another audience question, and this also goes back to your opening remarks as well about immigration and the southern border. And the audience member here asked, what are the problems specifically at the southern border? Why is it a crisis?
That's an important question, and it's not a simple answer. The crisis of the border, and we've all seen it on the news, we've all seen varying degrees of it, but seeing it firsthand, I will share with you that the irrelevance for life, the cartels, and the battles that they are facing on the border, that our law enforcement's hands are tied, that we are not as a country, as the United States, we are not enforcing laws, and we have enough fentanyl now in our country to kill every American. And some of you, this has just came up recently, I meet with law enforcement regularly, and here's a great example. One of the issues at the border is that many people go, and they're snowbirds, and they go down to the border, and they're in Arizona or Texas, and they're getting their medicines over the border, and they're doing that because it's affordable, right? And some of you may know some of those people, but guess what? Those medicines are tainted. Those medicines are the same crisis that we're facing here in America. So there's not one crisis, there's not one issue. The crisis is all of the issues combined. It's the fentanyl, and it's the drug cartels that are infiltrating. They're infiltrating our schools, they're infiltrating our youth, they're infiltrating and it's a crime issue in every state. And so crime is something I hear a lot about from the people of our district. And not only that, but the sex trafficking and the human trafficking, if nothing else, on a heart level, on a humanitarian issue, is something that we should be paying attention to, that we can stop, that we can do better. And that the fentanyl and their other drugs, they're coming from China. So again, remember that on a foundation of national security, that we have, they're infiltrating our weak spots, and we are going to be suffering the consequences for many, many years.
Thank you. I want to move now into a few questions that are less policy-oriented and more related to politics. This is, after all, a political campaign.
Okay.
And as of this month, Democrats hold about a 38,000 edge in voter registrations over Republicans in the 4th District. So of the two Republicans in the race, what makes you the most likely to defeat a Democratic incumbent in this district?
Excellent question. I love this question, and let me tell you why. There's a lot of data to be learned and gleaned from the 4th District. I will tell you that I believe Val Hoyle is winnable because she's weak and she is vulnerable for multiple reasons. If you follow the news, it's not new news. But I will tell you, in the looking at, to your point, the data of the Democrats versus Republican, I don't know. Let me share really quick. As a previous candidate, I was the GOP nominee for the 5th District, and that was before we redistricted. So that was part of the decision moving forward into this district, was that I had 3 counties that I did extremely well in. and they were blue districts. And I believe that we can move forward as individuals, not party. I don't see it as a partisan issue. I see it as an issue of all of the issues and how we find solutions together. So that sounds simple, and let me go a little bit into more detail about that, because I believe I resonated with everyone. And I think that's really important, that everyone's heard, everyone's acknowledged, and that moving forward for solutions, that we all have great ideas. I've learned so much from the people of my district. So I did very well in those districts before they were redistricted, and again, this is a very large district. So moving forward with your data, though, and to your point of Democrats versus independents versus Republicans, I can tell you that there's more non-affiliated voters than there are Democrats. And the reason for that is that the DMV motor voter, and that's part of our election integrity conversation, is if you don't mark the right check mark on the front of your party, no matter what it is, they will automatically move you to a non-affiliated voter. People don't recognize that. They don't know what they say, I'm a lifelong whichever party. They believe that, but they didn't realize when they renewed their driver's license, it was changed. So I think the data is a little bit strewn. I think it's important for us to get out the vote and talk to people about what's your party, where do you fall. I respect everyone in the district. I think it's so important that they are educated to know that they need to make sure that they're registered in the party that they choose, and also that that this seat is going to be one. It's not going to be one on money, my friends. We've had many candidates in this position who have raised millions of dollars, have we not? And guess what? They didn't win. They didn't win because they didn't resonate with the hearts and minds and the issues of the people. And I believe, to your point, that that's what makes me the candidate who can beat Val Hoyle, because it won't be about who can raise the most money at the very end of the day. And Democrats have deep pockets, right? The progressive Val Hoyle has a very deep war chest. But I would argue that a lot of that money comes from corruption and dark money, and I think we need to address that. And so moving forward, I have great ground support, I have great grassroots support, and it will be really important to gain that momentum. No matter who's in the nominee, you'll have a choice in come November 5th to who is that person who's going to represent you. I don't know about you, but none of the Congress people call me back. Have anybody tried? They don't return the calls. I'm going to return the calls. I'm going to have the conversations, whether they're difficult or not, and I will be an excellent representative for every person in the district.
This next question is admittedly a bit of an inside baseball or perhaps inside the Beltway question, but as a Republican, if elected, you would join a caucus in Congress that, charitably speaking, is kind of fractured. It's repeatedly turned on its own leaders. In fact, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has threatened to call for a vote to oust the current and relatively new Speaker, Mike Johnson. So do you support Mike Johnson as House Speaker?
I support Mike Johnson because he is the House Speaker. I will have that decision to make if it comes to the table as your Congresswoman, and we'll have the conversations of why and how we move forward with that. I think people over politics. That's what I think. I think at the end of the day, what's right? How do we treat each other? And I don't mean Congress, because it's a mess, right? I'm not trying to pretend that we can go in and fix that immediately. It's going to be difficult to unify. But my job is to be your voice and to listen to you, the people. And I think that we've lost that art in the United States and in Oregon. I think we have a lot of representation who is disconnected and not paying attention to what the people are asking for. So as I move forward with those decisions as they are presented to me, if and when I am your Congresswoman, I will continue to have the open conversations, the dialogue, and you'll know why I voted the way I did and how I voted and where I stand. And there will be complete transparency and no secrets in how we get to those decisions.
Our next question comes from a member of the audience here today, and it has a very specific kind of scenario, so I'd like you to address this, but I'll read the question as written. District 4 includes communities of very diverse political orientations. How will you handle situations where your constituents widely support a policy that you yourself think is acceptable, but your party opposes? Would you be willing to go against a party position?
I know you don't know me, and you will, but I am not a go along to get along kind of girl. I'm about doing what's right, and I'm about listening to you, my constituents. Bottom line, there's no wavering there. I get that there's partisan politics involved, and there is, and you know how I'm being very upfront and honest of how I feel about issues, but I learned so much from the people in my district and the people who are engaging and having the conversations, whether we agree or disagree. I learned so much, and it changes how we move forward, and it's not all about, I have been to DC many times. I have much support in DC. I've had some difficult conversations on that level, and I have never backed down, nor I'm relentless. I am a small business owner. I was a single mom for 24 years. As a foster kid, you can imagine, I'm kind of painting a picture here to let you know that I am not an establishment candidate. I am not money driven. I'm all about you, the people, and that will never change. And I promise that.
Thank you. This next question is kind of a merging of an audience question and one that I had written down myself. According to public records, as well as your own website, both your residence and your campaign office are located outside the 4th Congressional District. While this is legal and in fact not unique among Oregon congressional candidates, it does raise a question of how you intend to serve as a voice for people who live in a district that you don't live in. What are your thoughts?
That's a great question. So, and I'm glad I get the chance to share this with you. So my address is Kaiser. It has been my campaign address since I began in politics, and so I maintained my post office box. I sold my house in Kaiser, and I live in the district. So my husband and I live in our RV. We have over 100 cities. We are grassroots, 100%, shopping, buying gas in the district, getting to know absolutely everyone. And so we do have a real estate agent. We are looking at property in the district. However, our address is Salem, and that is because that's where I came from. And so we are excited to be grassroots, meeting people, and it's not just 100 cities that we have in the district, because again, it's 18,000 square miles. I'm really honored that we have, to me, it's a privilege to go out and meet people where they live, and it wouldn't matter what city I lived in, being in the district and getting to know everyone is really important. So to me, I feel that I do live in the district because I'm in my RV, and also for security reasons, and that's a long story, but I'm happy to share. The police have recommended that I use and maintain my P.O. box. So,
thank you. One more sort of political process kind of question, and then if we have time, I have another audience question as well. You talked a little bit about how unaffiliated voters are the largest single block of voters in the 4th District, which I believe is true of most congressional districts in Oregon. What's your message to people who are so disillusioned that they either are not choosing to register or have not chosen to figure out how to register with a political party? And on a related note, Oregon's primaries are what are called closed primaries, so only Republicans will be able to vote in the Republican primary, etc. And do you support that policy for running primary elections?
we have so many elections issues, that's something that I'm open to looking at in the future, but right now it is the rule, and I support that because it's the rule, and I really don't have a better solution for it until we move forward with a new Secretary of State and how we fix our elections. And there's multiple issues with that. But I would tell you, I'm talking to just so many people in the district, all ages, and it's the younger ages that are a little more disenfranchised. And they'll tell me, my vote doesn't matter. They'll tell me it doesn't matter that I show up, and I obviously get out the vote and encouraging people to vote and to register with a party that they're aligned with, however, there's a lot of information there to be gleaned from new voters, right? I really encourage young new voters to get engaged in the process. I think the importance, of course, is to show up and vote for everyone, no matter party affiliation, because you're part of the engaging and part of the process. But I would also tell you that I think we've lost the art or the ability to remind people that it's a privilege and it's a right. And I think I can remember voting since I was 18, and you get your sticker and you're proud, and you do the research on the candidates and you decide who's aligned with my values or who's going to represent me well. And many times I've gone into it, and of course I didn't know the candidates, right? So I cannot stress enough that we all have a responsibility to encourage our family and our youth and our colleges. As you pointed out, we have great colleges in the area. I think we can do a better job of encouraging everyone to be participated in the process of the democracy. And that's something that our vets and all of you who are vets here today, thank you for your service. Every vet fought for that right for us to show up and vote, and we need to exercise it.
The idea that the 2020 presidential election was somehow stolen is an idea that continues to have support, including by former President Donald Trump. How, not to go back to that election, but looking at the current 2024 presidential election in particular, how confident are you that the United States, sort of in the aggregate, can properly and fairly elect a president?
That's another, these are tough questions. You did not tell me, no. I do believe that I have confidence in our elections. I wish that everyone had confidence in our elections. Could we do better? Do we have issues? Absolutely. And we can fix those issues because we have to demand accountability. Not in looking forward to your point and not looking back, the importance is showing up. We have had the lowest voting appearance and voting attendance that we've ever had. And I think that's going to be the case with the primary, and that really makes me sad. But the reality is, to build a strong democracy, to get people involved, to get people engaged in the issues, no matter what they think or how they feel or what their parents and grandparents thought, getting engaged in the process has got to be one of our #1 priorities. And I think it's all of our responsibility to share that and to be encouraging and hopeful that by showing up and having your voice heard, that we can have confidence in our future elections.
Do you think that we're on a path towards having an election result that is widely agreed upon and supported by both major presidential candidates, members of both major political parties?
I wish I could say I felt that confidence. I don't, and I'll tell you why. Not because I don't believe in the process or how we handle our elections, or anything negative like that. I don't see it as an issue and security issue. I see it as an attitude, an apathy, and the fact that we have people who don't believe in the process and don't see the value of the process. And I think that's where we're failing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we just have time for a few more questions, and I want to ask one that came from a member of our audience here today. Many Oregonians are concerned about human rights for civilians in both Palestine and Israel. After a clearly marked food aid truck was bombed, including an American citizen among the victims, where does the conversation begin around ensuring that our tax dollars do not support the killing of more on-the-ground heroes, Americans, like food aid workers who are sort of helping the victims of a war?
Again, not an easy one answer question. I think the accountability financially, fiscally is relevant on a federal level, to your point. But when you believe in the sanctity of life, of course, that's the goal, is to save lives and to not witness the ending of lives. But I also think that we can reinvest and make sure that we, first and foremost, should be having every American citizen should not be a hostage. And that's where our resources should be going. We should be fighting for American citizens first on every level. And so the fact that we have hostages and we have not taken a stronghold and gone in and gotten them or made moves in that direction is important to me. And I think that's something that needs to be a priority. But to your point, when you have these large budget package, trillions of dollars, and they're allocated for special projects for personal gain for both parties. I think the corruption goes both ways. I'm not partisan on that. I think that's where Congress has failed. That's where we need to have our elected officials hold true to the line and provide accountability for the fiscal responsibility, the pet projects, the issues that we're having. And you should never be a representative on any level and go in with a salary and walk out with millions of dollars. We have to fix that. We have to stop the corruption. And I wish that that conversation was as big as it is. It's a huge conversation, and I believe that that is a big part of why we're struggling with finding the answers and ending the conflict.
Thank you. We very briefly touched on this earlier in the hour, but I want to go back to the Second Amendment and issues about gun regulation, gun policy, and the goal of reducing gun violence. What do you think is the balance between constitutional rights and sort of the societal good of reducing gun violence?
So this is a very important conversation. I am a staunch believer in our Second Amendment and our Constitution. And I will tell you that in my opinion, and moving forward, and the failure of our government has got to be in mental health. We have to put our resources, our time, our energy into our mental health. And that's really, it's simple as that.
Yeah. I've heard you mention a number of times sort of the role of state, and you have experience especially in local governments. I'm wondering why you have run a couple of times now for a federal office, which sort of in your words would not have a role in some of these critical issues, albeit in others. So why do you see a federal office like Congress being in your future?
Excellent. I'm so glad you asked that question, because when I started my political process, and I mentioned that to you, my heart was driven for the kids and providing accountability in our state level, because we have the money. Oregon does not have a money issue. We have an accountability issue. So I believe that is the federal purse strings on multiple areas is where we can make a difference as your federal representatives, all of us. There would be 6 of us, right? Because we have that new seat. And so the importance is the accountability, the fiscal responsibility. And for me, when I started this process, and again, my heart was in it for the kids, the more I got involved, the more I've always been a policy and a law girl, but the reality is, the more I saw and witnessed firsthand of the corruption of our government, the more driven I have felt, passionate, and I'm investing not only my own time, my campaign is 24/7, but I am investing my money. I've put my money where my mouth is. I've invested into the people and into solutions and finding resources and answers. The more you see of and witness firsthand of the corruption of our government, the more driven I am, and I feel a responsibility that I will be an excellent representative who will do the right thing and support you in a way that is respectful and find solutions so that we can have a better Oregon. And I believe that with my whole heart, or I would not still be in the fight.
Thank you. Now, here's a question that I never asked at the beginning of my journalism career, which is, what do you think about TikTok? Specifically, what do you think the federal government's role should be, as some have suggested that certain social media platforms be banned in the United States or regulated in some way? Where
Sure.
do you stand on that?
This is a hot topic on multiple levels, but I will tell you, going in on day one, I have 4 different bills that I'm supporting. 2 I've created, 2 pieces of legislation I've created, and 2 that I have co-signed moving forward as a new member of Congress, should I be your Congresswoman. So I'm very involved in policy. This is one of the points. House Bill 230 talks about censorship. It talks about the importance of social media and how not only are we censored, and as people and as the people, I should say, and not just politics, we're censored. And these platforms are monopolies, and they are not our friends. So to your point of TikTok and them using that, I would also, but I don't think it's one issue. Obviously, China is one of our #1 enemies. So I think it's really important that how we deal with that and how we address that is important. But I also believe that it's a role government doesn't have to go in and tell someone they have to sell their company. I think we could do we have different options and different solutions for that, we should have. I will tell you that I have struggled on social media. I have over 50,000 followers. Total combined. You will find that my history in social media is long. I've been a 30-year community servant. I have served my community in multiple areas. I'm happy to share that with you. It's a long list. But everything from being a domestic advocate to our kids to sports, I have been involved and committed to my community. And the grassroots, if you will, of what's important to our kids and how we take care of our future generations. That being said, we have to protect our kids as well, right? We have that responsibility, but is it government's responsibility? So I would tell you that I am seeing firsthand that our government plays a role in our lives and coming into social media, not just from out of the country, but into our own country. And so we need to hold our own government to a higher standard and not allow them to invade our privacy. And I feel strongly about that. And it's not just about China, it's about all of government into our homes, into our phones, into our cars, into our lives as privacy. So it's not just, again, to me, it's not just about a country, it's about all of it.
Thank you. I think we're getting close to the time to wrap up. I wanted to give you the chance to make a closing statement. I know there's a lot of issues that we covered, some that we didn't get to. I didn't ask you about healthcare, for instance. But this is your chance to make your closing statement and bring up anything that I didn't ask you about.
You asked me so many great questions. You know, I will let you know, first of all, I'm very available. I have my website is amyfororegon.com. My phone number is on my business card, but I will let you know it's 503-999-6972. I answer my own phone. I don't have a large staff, pretty fiscal conservative. So, and I want to have the conversations with you of what's important if we haven't touched on it. So please reach out to me because I think that's so important for you to get to know me if it's something that's important to you. And I wrote this out because, again, it's easy to talk way too much. But in closing, you know, Oregonians, we have failed on many levels for our kids, for our future, for our seniors, and for our vets. And I think we can do so much better. I've always been a person who believes that we can do better. And so to be part of the solution, to ask for your vote, I'll be honest, sitting here with you today is an honor. This is the most important job interview I will ever have. And you as a voter, you're deciding who is going to be your voice and your representative, and I don't take that lightly. So I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored that you have asked the questions and the tough questions, and I love the engagement, so I appreciate that. I want you to have confidence, no matter your party in November, that you can vote for me and that you will have representation that is respectful and open and honest and will do the right thing on behalf of you, the people. Because we have a lot of issues, all 7 counties, a lot of issues to tackle. And so it's exhausting, but it's important to be engaged, and I need that from you. I need your support equally as you will need mine. And so I ask for you to do your homework, check out all of my social media, or call and ask the questions so that you can feel confident in earning and that I can earn your vote, because that is important to me. It would be easy to go on and on and on, and I'm one of those people who have a lot to say. So we've kind of touched on things today, but again, I can't stress enough to reach out to me, connect with me. I am trying to go to everything from city councils to the chambers to have coffees. I have coffees and meet people. Again, the size of the district is limiting, so if you would like to hold and take a sign for me and put a sign in for me, or you would like to donate, of course, we appreciate that. Again, I want to be a campaign that is driven for the people. I don't believe that we've had excellent representation in this position, so I do feel confident in running against Val Hoyle that she is vulnerable and that we can have better representation. It's not personal. It's about who we are as a community and where we want to be, because fiscally, financially, the national debt, we just can't survive this if we don't make changes and communicate and find the answers together. So with that, thank you for your time. God bless America and each one of you for sharing your time with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I'll turn it over now to City Club for closing remarks.
Can we get just one more thank you for both Amy and Chris today? I really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here, and Chris for facilitating the forum today. Springfield City Club is going to be back here next Thursday. We're going to be talking about the City of Springfield road bond. So we hope to see you back here. Look for the information in your newsletter that Len sends out. And Mary, do you have anything you want to say on? Nope. Okay. Well, they're meeting next Friday. So, all right. Well, we'll see you guys later. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.